So it's a time for Unpackage from China. Yep, we're going to take a close look at something from AliExpress this time. And this is okay, that's not what it's supposed to be. This is going to be the new Pandora's Box 10 edition, but it's going to be the Jamma. In this video, I'm just going to show you how the basics are for connecting this device, but I also changed some things out. Some things I personally don't really like. But for now, we're going to focus on the Jamma version. The Jamma version can be bought in different kind of versions, and I mean in particular when it comes to a combination of a cable tree or something else. This is just the, let's say, the cable harness in combination with the Pandora's box, because I needed both of them. But if you're already like having a Chinese arcade with a Pandora's box Jamma, you can just basically hop swap it most of the time. Always double check if your voltages and also the input for the cables are exactly the same. Otherwise, for example, the cables you need to swap underneath the button, for example, because when you're looking at the Jamma, they are soldered and that is not easy to swap out. But beside that, let's take a close look also at the cable harness, what you're going to get. Everything will go through this. So what do I mean with this? When you're looking at it, here we're going to get at the left, we need to plug this in at this side. You can see the dividers, kind of bummer they don't use that in the socket over here. But what you're going to get is the voltage. We're going to get ourselves the mass, the 12 volt is the yellow and the red one is the 5 volt. Am I saying it correctly? Always double check your own arcade machine, but also your manual when you're connecting something like this. Always triple check, and even getting yourself a voltage meter would not be a very, let's say, crazy idea. The input for all of the controls, but this video we're just not going to use it. But what you're going to need to do is very simple. Here we're going to get two different things you need to connect. I'm not going to connect everything, but I just wanted to give you an idea. So this is just for player 1 and 2 of your arcade machine. And that's what I love about Pandora's box. You just plug it in and you're ready to go when it comes to the control part. But when it comes to the voltage, yeah, there we're going to get this. And with this, I mean, we're going to need something else to connect this thing, because this is one of the changes they made with the new Pandora's Box 10. So Pandora's Box 10th edition, I can still remember having the Pandora game 3D, if I'm saying it correctly, and maybe also the older versions had an input for inject 12 volt if you just want to use that. Nope, we're just going to get the volume wheel over here, LED indication, audio out, VGA out, HDMI out, and with the HDMI out, if you're going to boot it up and hold the button, you can change the resolutions for your typical monitor. Then over here we're going to get the Ethernet, but what I understand, the Wi-Fi capability and all the stuff where the internet doesn't even work, you cannot update this thing. And then we're going to get ourselves the two USBs, and yep, we can use controllers on this, and that's what we're going to use today. But that's the thing, we cannot give this thing an external 12 volt power adapter. Nope, we need to do it differently. We're going to need one of these. Yep, we're going to need, I think they are calling Jamma power supplies. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I picked it up for on AliExpress. There was a cheap one. I would always say, like, in power supply, get yourself a decent one at least. But nevertheless, what you're going to get is the stuff that we're going to need. First of all, here you can see all in different row of different connections. At the right over here, we're going to have the wall socket connections. And that is basically what you need to look out for. Always be very careful with this. Then over here over to the left we're going to get the 2 grounds and 5 volts and 12 volts and this tiny knob that we can change the voltage. I also say, like, double check it, get yourself a voltage meter. So if you're going to plug it in, before you're going to plug in, let's say, the power supply in your Jamma connection, you always need to double check that the voltage is just 5 volts and 12 volts and nothing too much. Otherwise maybe you're going to fry your mainboard. That were the basics about Jamma, but I asked my good friend from the Pandora channel to explain a little bit more about Jamma and how it actually all works on a CRT.
Hey guys, this is EmuChicken from Team Pandora. So Wicked Gamer and Collector asked me to kind of explain what Jamma is. In the case of arcade boards, it's a standardized edge connector, so arcade operators could have one cabinet and easily switch in and out the games with little faff. So what does a Jamma connector do? Well, it powers the board, and also links up arcade controls, sound, and even the monitor. But saying that, there are some exceptions. This Pandora Box 10th here has CGA output on the Jamma connector, but there are other boards like the Pandora Box X that don't support this. In this case, the Jamma Edge will provide power and a link for controls and sound. For the video, you'll need to use VGA or HDMI port, making these more useful if you have something modern like a Viewlix. So let's pop it into a Sega Astro City. Just find the Jamma harness and plug it in. Just make sure it's the correct way up. And usually that should be it. But my speakers are connected to an amplifier, so I'll need to use this audio jack. Now that the box is in, all we need to do is give it some juice. Boop. We may need to adjust the screen size and sync first, but once we're done, game on. Anyway, I hope that helped explain the Jamma standard, and I'll catch you later. Ta-ra!
Thank you, Mr. EmuChicken, for joining and explaining a little bit more about the Pandora's Box Jamma, as particularly the highlight, and also for the CRTs, because I think that is pretty damn cool. Nevertheless, there is so much more in the manual. If you want to have more information, here we can find things about the buttons, how you need to connect it, and everything you just need to know about this. So now it comes on ARM Cortex A55, each core clocked at 2.2 GHz. This CPU is kind of weird as saying CPU once, but this GPU is, they even make a freaking typo here, is a G52 over here. So this one is slightly powerful. We're going to get 2 GB of RAM, LPDDR4X, 2133 MHz. Nevertheless, we're going to get not a lot of space, 8 GB eMMM system storage. It's an Android box. That's basically what we're going to get with, let's say, the storage. We're not going to use it. And of course, the 64 GB. Yeah, and the SD cards they're using, I must say that with official Pandora's box, it's going to be in hit or miss. Sometimes they're using, I think it seems to be looking SanDisk, but nevertheless, we're going to have Android, already mentioned that, different resolutions. And this makes this, let's say, a very cool mainboard if you want to have this on 4x3 JAMMA output and CRT monitor. I think it's pretty damn cool in my opinion. So but nevertheless, we're going to get ourselves different kind of games. What is a little bit bummer, the vertical games or the Tate mode, they are not doing that great because I couldn't find any of them that works. And also my good friend from the EmuChicken, Pandora, he told me like it was absolutely a mess. He also showed in his video. But in the jungle of Pandora's boxes, when it comes to the controller port, there we're going to get absolutely a rabbit hole inside of the rabbit hole of Pandora's boxes. Because I do have a lot of weird controllers from China. These are like the cheap USB controllers you mostly find with Pandora's boxes. But when it comes to the support, I did notice it's going to be in hit or miss. But I'm just going to be honest, what we're having over here a PlayStation 3 controller from a different brand. From, I think this is called even Cyber Gadget, personally never heard of it. The best basically support is the Xbox 360 lineup or the X input. So basically we're having 3 controllers that seem to be working fine. The first one is the ByTop. This is a very difficult one in my opinion to find. They mostly sell this with Super Console X's, or you can just of course use them in your PC. They're very comfortable, have a PlayStation 4 look-alike grip when it comes to this. And it's kind of interesting to have this on flat surface, but when you're looking at the comfortability when it comes to the D-pad and the ABXY, I really like this particular controller. I'm always such a big fan when it comes to the Xbox 360, and this one also works on previous models. I think it was a DX and a DX Special, so it does have a great compatibility. And the last one, it is more like a fun novelty if you like fighting games. So this particular version is more like a fight pad. It will have every single button that you're going to need, but as a big fan of fighting games, it's pretty damn cool, and it also seems to be working on this new latest Pandora's Box series. Please don't try this out at home. I'm just basically putting this together for the review purpose and I can test the mainboard itself. But this is actually the idea of what you need to do. So the power supply that you will find in a normal, maybe yourself, you can Chinese arcade machine. I've reviewed many times here on the channel. So what you're going to get are multiple different voltages from here. So basically over here we're going to get the input of the voltage over here from my wall socket. And this will be divided over the 5 and 12 volts. So the yellow one is 12 volt and the red one is 5 volt. And the black one is going to be mass. Nevertheless, when you have the 3 ones, double check your manual by the way, because everything is described in the Pandora's Box 10 manual. And then of course the connection. This is something you need to take consideration. So when you're going to plug in the JAMMA, everything will be provided through here. And I mean in particular when you're looking at this, we're going to get ourselves the voltages where I mentioned before. And of course we're going to get all the input for the joysticks and everything else. So what is a little bit of a weird situation, we do have a divider over here. You can see that the voltage and this is the input for the controls. But when it comes to this particular one, they didn't implement it. I find it a very annoying thing. So if you're having a brain fart and you accidentally like putting it all the way around, yep, you will have a problem and it's highly possible you will fry your machine. So that's a little bit bummer and I wish they freaking start doing that so you cannot mess it up. Okay, but that's basically what it is when it comes to connecting and voltages. But let's take a close look at the menu to begin with. They completely did a revision of the main menu, and I must say that it looks quite nice. So it's still got all of the tiny previews at the right. They did manage to, let's say, improve the menu and the overall experience. Pressing start, here we're going to get ourselves the right top corner an extra menu where we're having search, and the search function is absolutely great. It works fine because also with some Pandora's boxes they completely messed it up, and you can see over here it works fine if you just want to search for a particular game. But pressing start twice again brings us to the same menu. We have alphabetic order now. Then we're going to get ourselves 3D games, 2 and 4 games. We do have light gun games, but take consideration you need to activate it with the first generation of Pandora's boxes. I don't know if they're going to do this later on. Then fighting, acting, the action, shooting, sport, puzzle, FBA, MAME, Place Portable, PlayStation, Dreamcast, Sega Nomi. Atomic Wave is also a system that is new, N64. Yeah, there's also going to be a hit or miss with these things, so don't expect too much from it. And of course the 8-bit, 16-bit era. Some handhelds, the new edition is MSX. Some Atari stuff in combination with Atari Lynx. I have no idea why this is. And of course the recent list. So that's basically a very quick summary of every single feature, and I think it's pretty damn cool. For the special settings menu, you need to go over here to press this button at the side where the 2 USB ports are. So when it comes to the settings menu, I do have some mixed feeling. First of all, when it comes to the Wi-Fi config, it makes no sense. With this first model, I understand you cannot even update it. It's kind of weird, to be honest. Button configuration. We can also find the button and system configuration sometimes in the quick menu. But going in here, we do have a lot of stuff that we can configure. For example, it's kind of weird. They call this the system configuration, kind of weird. But we do have different kind of let's say different mappings you can use in game, so that is absolutely convenient. Gamepad configuration, here you can see I'm using a Microsoft Xbox, and they are using, let's say, in support of different let's say, controllers. From the settings we can also mess around with the EO tester for the light gun and activate the crosshair settings. So there's a lot of stuff you can mess around with. System configuration, auto exit, it has been set to 3 minutes. This is more like in demo mode. The high quality filter is off and the scan lines is the same. Over here we're going to get the option for 4-play configuration through the USB with an hub if you want to. I have set the credits to free play. You need to do that, by the way, when you're booting up the device. Game config, over here we have the difficulty live, add a favorite list, and of course the game list. In the game list itself we also can mess around with the emulators. So if you have the light on not have been set up, you need to do it over here. There is no aspect ratio in this option, but you can sometimes find it in the quick menu, and the language is English, Spanish and Asian. That's it. That's the only thing that we're going to get when it comes to the special settings. So let's start off with some Tekken, and it's unfortunate when it comes to certain games, they completely mess it up. Particularly when you're looking at the emulation performance. Small audio delay. So far I can see the audio is just having a smaller delay. Most of the time it's very easy fix, but we cannot get into the emulator.
Round 1, fight.
But the speed itself of the game is just nice. Pressing my select or the back button over here brings us in the special menu where we can make a quick load, quick save. We have the same console config and gamepad config already mentioned before. Next up we can even change out the aspect ratio, so that's pretty cool. Take consideration if you're going to mess with the resolutions. And I mean, with the resolutions, you're just going to be having the problem that the aspect ratio is going to be gone. That only works so far I know in the full HD option. Next up, let's take a close look at the PlayStation Portable. Yeah, it's a system that will not run perfectly, simply because it's too demanding. And these boxes are just not powerful enough. But I must say that the overall performance is surprisingly good compared with the older, let's say, older Pandora's boxes we've reviewed. We have the slowdowns, the wiggly feet. The unfortunate thing is I need to map the buttons because they are not one-on-one configured with the original PlayStation Portable. But the overall performance isn't quite nice. Take consideration, it's going to be a hit or miss when it comes to PlayStation Portable. So one of the things that I find a little bit of bummer when it comes to MAME, yep, there are not, let's say, no dip switches whatsoever or other things you can do in the emulator. It's just what you see is what you're going to get. There's no way to get into the menu. And also another thing is quite annoying, that the audio is very low. And you should like adjust that in the emulator. Now I need to adjust it all the way up to freaking 90% of the volume of my television. Nothing to do about it. Also, there is no shadows. What I understand of that, they are using the wrong emulator when it comes to that. But the overall gameplay is quite nice, that we can play Mortal Kombat series on a device like this. One thing I have noticed, and that makes me more exciting, that Sega Dreamcast finally runs way better. Where the previous boxer with the Mali G450 GPU had a lot of glitches going on. But it seems to be working just fine now. Let's see if we can change out the aspect ratio. Yep, we can. Oh, that looks so much better. So finally we do have a Pandora's box that can actually play Sega Dreamcast without any hassle on native resolution. But I have no idea where all the freaking buttons are. That is in general a problem, so you just need to go to the keypad configuration or console configuration they call it and mess around with the buttons to get the right personal best button mapping for you. So next up I want to try some Gigawing from the Sega Naomi system. What is possible is getting rapid fire on, pressing start and A at the same time. Kind of funny, Naomi is like twice the volume than all the previous games, but doesn't spoil the fun. Let's take a close look at it. Rapid fire has been enabled. I already died, but you can see that it does struggle when it comes to emulation performance. With the Super it goes absolutely like into the dipping mode with FPSs. Another system that is brand new, I already mentioned before, is that this is Atomic Wave. Normally I'm going to choose Dolphin Blue because it's more like a test bench game for me, but it's not on here, so. But I did hear some hiccups. But again, it's going to be depending what kind of game you're going to play. Let's see if we can change out the aspect ratio. Yep, there we go. I must say that this game is so weird. Next up, N64, because Killer Instinct is not available to play on this. It's not on the system, but also not possible to play. EmuChicken from Pandora tested it out for us. But when it comes to the overall gameplay of the Killer Instinct Gold, I can tell you it's going to be in choppy ride. Simply because this thing doesn't come with full speed. There is some minor glitches. Also the family struggled from that. You can see the background, the air is completely like flickering sometimes. So N64, in my opinion, they just should remove this. But where these boxes shine also very great is just when it comes to 16-bit stuff. Let's automatically set it to the normal resolution because 6x9 looks absolutely hideous. And take consideration, aspect ratio does not work if you're going to use different resolutions. Okay, so one of those like weird games that you can actually like get and find on these things are like modified version of original games. 16-bit runs absolutely amazing, but this makes it like freaking hilarious to play the original game only with different characters. There was one particular thing I wanted to check out, and it is like the Game Boy stuff. Okay, it's all cool, you can actually play Game Boy, but it looks absolutely hideous when stretched out. But how will it work when we're going to put it in different aspect ratio? Yeah, it looks okay, let's say that, but when it comes to the overall experience, a bezel would be better what we're having with Baldacera, EmuELEC or Raspberry Pi. But the emulation is just great. But let's do a quick teardown. Let's take a close look how this will look in the inside. So when it comes to the construction, it's slightly different because the family edition is just clicked together. We're having 4 screws, now we need to unscrew. So when it comes to the family boards, I did notice when you're looking at the previous ones, they are still using the same kind of mold. Alright, so let's get this thing out. So the construction is completely different when you're comparing this with the family board. Later on we're doing side by side. Let's see if it... can I lift this out? Is there somewhere an SD card? No, okay, I just want to be safe. You don't know how many times I almost ruined my SD card. There we go. Here on the inside we will find the Wi-Fi antenna like with the family. And this is the main board having an active fan. There was also a little bit of a hit or miss with these things. Sometimes I have like a passive. Passive is of course great because it doesn't make any sound. But yeah, cooling issues and etc. They're having a fan in here, but this thing is quite loud to be honest. You can hear it on the background when recording gameplay. Nevertheless, this is what you're going to get with the main board. It's absolutely tiny. There's not a lot of information. It does says over here Rockchip 3566 version. I think it's version 12, not 1.2. Nevertheless, the SD card in here, you don't need to basically mess around with this because the main files on here, also EmuChicken will explain in his video, is like the main files are, you're just stuck with it. If it's bad, it doesn't like run at all. It cannot be fixed. And through the USB and an extra SD card, you can add games if you want to. Pandora's Box 10th edition brings something new to the table, particularly when you don't have a Pandora's Box or you're just having a very old one. When you're looking at the previous models like the DX, it's a minor step up. Still a lot of positive and negative sides, unfortunate, stuff they didn't fix. The first model is kind of a disappointment when you're looking at the overall, let's say, performance. There are a lot of cool things, but again, as a reviewer, I have seen too many of these things and I've seen a lot of mistakes they never fixed. Thank you all for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think of this. Would you consider upgrading your arcade machine with it? And it would be great to see you in the next video.